Hello and welcome. In today's episode of Skyrim Cut Content, we'll be looking at an important event with very big consequences that was just casually removed from Skyrim. So if you saw the title and already know what I'm talking about, you might ask yourself, why didn't he just say quest? Well, you will see why in a minute. First, we'll need to quickly recap the events that would have led up to this removed content. In the final game, the player can work for the Daedric Prince Boethiah when slaying a friend at her shrine in the mountains. Boethiah then gives a task to the last person standing at the shrine, which is going to be you. In order to be named champion, you will have to kill the old champion, but stealthily. You can of course ignore that last little detail and face no consequences at all. After the champion lies dead, Boethiah will speak to you and pat you on the back for a job well done. You get to keep the previous champion's ebony mail, and you will never hear from Boethiah again. This is the dialogue that you will hear in the final game.
You have done well, my champion. You have earned my respect, a feat few manage and live to tell about. I shall write your name upon the tablet of absolute darkness. You may keep my ebony mail, a token of my appreciation to my new champion. Its gifts will resonate with your talents. Now go. I have strings to pull that require my full attention. You may pursue your own course wherever it leads you. Remember always this. As you will it, so it shall be.
However, originally, instead of Boethiah congratulating you, she would give you your real task.
You have earned the right to call yourself my champion. And now you must perform the task for which I created you. You have already proven to possess the needed skills. Go to Solitude, stalk the Jarl, and slay her. I have spread rumors of an assassin. It will make your job harder, but will allow me to place blame where I desire it. You will need stealth and lies to get past her guards. You will assassinate her swiftly and quietly. And if combat finds you, survive the escape. Succeed, and you may keep your title and my armor. And I shall write your name upon the tablet of absolute blackness. Failure is not an option.
So yeah, Boethiah would send you to kill Jarl Elisif the Fair of Solitude, but the player had to smooth talk their way in, or be creative. Now, why didn't I use the term quest at the start of this video? The coding for this quest is very weird. The quest in the final game, Boethiah's Calling, still has basically all the coding for the so-called quest Boethiah's Bidding. Boethiah's Bidding in itself doesn't contain much except for some quest stages and an objective. Even all the dialogue is placed in Boethiah's Calling. So, to clarify, I didn't refer to Boethiah's Bidding as a new quest, because it doesn't seem to be one. Either the rest of the coding and dialogue had yet to be moved over, or the dialogue and such was already incorporated in the first quest, making Boethiah's Bidding obsolete. For all intents and purposes, this was always meant to be one quest and not multiple. There are 5 other quests related to this which the player normally never sees, as all they do is set events in motion that influence the calling/bidding quest. However, if we ignore all the messy code, we can still fully reconstruct what was meant to happen. When Boethiah gave us the new objective, Boethiah's Bidding would appear in our quest journal, but the calling quest wouldn't really disappear, as it would still function in the background in order to handle dialogue and such. The journal now reads: Lord Boethiah has sent me, her champion, to assassinate the Jarl of Solitude using guile, deception and stealth. A new and very blunt objective would now also be present, simply reading Assassinate the Jarl of Solitude. Now, when heading to the Blue Palace in Solitude, you would quickly find out that Boethiah wasn't lying. A guard would halt you when entering and say the following:
I've been instructed to tell all visitors that the Lady Elisif isn't feeling well. She wishes you a good day, and please, call again another time.
Now, as a side note, this guard dialogue is recorded in the generic guard voice type, but also in voice types for Stormcloak and Imperial soldiers. should the player have advanced in the Civil War in such a way that these would be needed. I will only be using the standard guard dialogue, otherwise we will be here all day. After hearing the guard, the player would say, "That won't do, I have pressing business for the Jarl." The guard would respond as such.
I'm afraid you'll have to come back later. I've been given strict instructions that no one be allowed to trouble Lady Eliseth.
In order to convince the guard to let you roam around, you get 2 more dialogue options. The first being, "Maybe I could speak with the steward instead," to which the guard would reply with,
Yes, the steward is taking visitors. However, I must accompany you at all times while on the royal premises.
The second option would have been, "Maybe one of my friends here in the palace could be my escort." And the guard would reply by saying,
There's someone in the palace who can speak for you and wouldn't mind walking you around. Great. Lead me to him.
Now, irregardless of which option you chose, 2 new options would appear. The first option would have been the question, "Must you follow me everywhere?" To which the guard would jokingly state,
I suppose you're free to frolic with the wenches in the servants' quarters. But anywhere else, you must have an escort. Jarl's orders.
The other option would progress the quest. You would have told the guard, "Let's go," with his response being,
Stay close and in plain view. No funny business unless you want a few inches of steel in your belly.
You would now have the ability to walk around the Blue Palace, albeit with the guard constantly by your side. Now it would appear that you could have asked the guard something and he would answer you sarcastically. What exactly you could have asked is unknown, as the player's line of dialogue no longer exists, only the guard's response.
Yes. Are you enjoying a little walk together? Or perhaps you'd like to come back when the lady is taking visitors?
Now, one other thing in regards to this guard. The game set up a zone internally where the player could be without an escort. And if they left this zone, a guard would yell at them.
Stay where I can see you. You need an escort at all times. Come back here.
If the player was still in this zone without an escort after 10 seconds, the guards would sound the alarm and would go hostile. You would have been noticed of this behavior by one of these 3 lines.
Damn it, I lost him. Protect the Jarl. Damn it, I lost her. Protect the Jarl. Protect the Jarl.
When walking around the palace, other guards would also give the player this warning.
Private quarters are strictly off limits. You have been warned.
An interesting thing about this voice line is that unlike all the other dialogue, this one is also recorded in a female voice type for no reason whatsoever.
Private quarters are strictly off limits. You have been warned.
Now, for the next part of the quest, you could actually go and visit one of the many people at the palace. All of them could help you progress. All except one. There are 10 possible people you could have asked for help. Steward Falk Firebeard, Housecarl Bolgeir Bearclaw, Court Wizard Sibyl Stentor, Thane Bryling and her personal guard Ernskar Ironhand, Thane Erikur's personal guard Malaran, but also the palace's cook Odar and servants Urdi and Una. Now, despite the 10 possible allies, there are only 2 different methods of completion. One way is linked to the palace higher-ups, and the other is linked to the servants. Odar, despite being only the cook, isn't an option for the servant route. In order to pursue that one, you have to talk to either Urdi or Una. Both women share the same dialogue, but in this example we'll be listening to Urdi's lines. Once you increased your relationship with Urdi enough, you could have asked her, "What's wrong with the Jarl?"
She's locked herself in her room, not letting anyone in. Well, except for us servants. She's afraid of assassins coming to get her. Even still, I make a point of announcing myself when I enter her room now. I spooked her so bad last time she almost threw the chamber pot at me.
You would then gain another 2 dialogue options. You could either say, "Assassins? Really? That's ridiculous. Who would want to kill her?" Or, "She lets the servants in? Seems like a gap in security that could be exploited." Choosing the second option would just skip the first dialogue, so let's pick the first one.
Not so ridiculous, really. I know people don't think much of her. But she is the Jarl, after all. Plenty of folk would kill to be in her shoes.
After this, you could then still choose the second option.
Well, she needs to eat. I don't even think she knows where the kitchen is. And Milady isn't exactly going to remove her own chamber pot, now is she? It hardly matters, though. The door to the stairs is securely locked. There's no way anyone without the key can get in. So don't you worry about it.
With this new information, you would get yet another new dialogue option. The lock could be weaker than it looks. May I see the key?
I suppose so, but believe me, only us servants have a key like that. And it's a very expensive-looking lock. Really, I wouldn't worry about it. Here, take a look for yourself. But give it back soon. It's almost time for Milady's medicine.
So, now you've acquired the key to Elisif's private chambers. but you would still need to sneak over there in order to do something with it. Maybe not your preferred way of doing things. The other method makes your work a lot easier. As a small side note, the associated quest script states that the key you would have received for Elisif's chamber was the servant's key. You still received this key in the final game, but during another quest, the Mind of Madness. So that seems to have been repurposed at least. Oh, also it seems that the guard would still accompany you at this point. So he would just kinda ignore the fact that the servant girl just handed the key to the Jarl's quarters to her friend. Or maybe they really would have been inside their quarters for the duration of the quest and the guard really wouldn't bother following the player in there. That would make sense, but they aren't made to stay in one location. They just move around like normal, so maybe this behavior was planned to get altered if this quest got polished up, but it never seems to have made it so far. Now, for the other method, if you had befriended either Melloran, Ernskar, Falk, Bolgir, Odor, Sibyl or Bryling, you could ask them what's wrong with the Jarl instead. Once again, everybody shares the same dialogue here, even more so as some have the same voice type. Talking to Falk or Odor would result in the exact same dialogue. The same goes for Ernskar and Bolgir. So for this example, we'll be listening to Melloran.
She's telling everyone she's sick, but she's really locked herself in her room because she fears an assassin is out to get her.
Once he told you this information, you would have got two options again. The first option is the same as before, but these higher-ups have a different response than the servants.
I know. The poor girl's fright has left her bereft of reason. But there's no talking her out of it. I fear she'll be locked in there for days.
The other option would have been, maybe she'd feel safer with a personal bodyguard. I could do that.
I bet she would feel safer. And hopefully you wouldn't have to babysit her for long. Once she calms down, she might start thinking straight again. Let's go talk with her. Stay close. Talk of assassins has the guards jumpy. They might attack you if you're not standing near me.
Your friend would agree with the proposition, and at this point they would now act as your escort, and the guard would go away. Now, with your friend in tow, you would head to Elisif's private chambers and a scene would play out.
Elisif!
Go away. Please.
I've brought a friend. Someone who can help you. A bodyguard. To protect you.
I thought you didn't believe I was in danger.
It doesn't really matter what I believe, now does it? I've brought you someone who can protect you. That's what you want, isn't it?
Stub. Well, what are you waiting for?
So, as you could have seen, there was meant to be a sound effect of Elisif unlocking and unbarring her door. But the sound effect didn't get recorded and instead it's her voice actress saying stub. This kind of placeholder dialogue appears many times in Skyrim's files. Another interesting thing here is that the lines for this scene are also recorded for Urdi and Una's voice type, although neither of them can actually help you with this scenario. As stated before, they only have a dialogue pad resulting in you getting the key, and no dialogue recorded for a friendly escort pad like the others. Despite this, they are still in the faction for friendly escorts, so maybe every NPC functioned in the same way before? I don't know, and it's not really that important either. Before continuing, let's take a step back to a small detail I haven't mentioned before. Should the player reach Elisif's private quarters without the relevant partners, then she would yell through her locked door with one of the following lines.
I'm not taking any visitors. Please just go away. Leave me alone. Go away.
Now, let's continue where we left off. Elisif would open the door for you and another scene would play out where she emotionally tells you how she feels about the whole situation.
Come in, come in. Shut the door behind you. I'm glad they finally believed me. About the assassin, I mean. It's been so hard since my Torek passed. No one takes me seriously. So how's this work exactly? Do you just kind of stand there on the lookout? That's what Bolgir does. Well, he sort of looms more than stands. Bolgir's loyal, but even he doesn't do what I ask. Case in point, this whole assassin thing. Well, at least I have you now. Look at me ramble. Well, I guess I'll go about my business sulking in here. You can stand over there in the corner watching for assassins.
Meanwhile, your friend who was escorting you would have returned to their normal duties. Now you're alone with Jarl Elisif in a small room. You could just kill her sneakily, but if you manage to only injure her, she'll flee while yelling,
Help! Assassin!
and her guards will raise the alarm now as well. Once Elisif lies dead, Boethiah will take over her body and use it as a conduit to speak with you, just like she does with the corpses in her normal quest.
You have done well, my champion. You have earned my respect. A feat few manage and live to tell about it. Now go. I have strings to pull that require my full attention. You may pursue your own course wherever it leads you. Remember always this. You need answer to no authority, neither mortal nor divine. As you will it, so it shall be.
If this speech sounds familiar, it's because it kinda is. It is very similar to her speech used in her normal quest once you equip the Ebony Mail. This version uses different takes, however. It has one minor wording change and is shorter overall, because many details of the used version get told to you at the beginning of this quest, such as you keeping the Ebony Mail and the reference to the Tablet of Absolute Blackness. Now of course, killing the Jarl of Skyrim's capital is bound to have a lot of consequences. And despite this being an unfinished storyline, a lot of effort was actually already put in some of the consequences. The biggest consequence is of course the fact that Elisif would need to be replaced. Thane Erikur would be the one to take this position, and he would get some new dialogue to boot. First off, you could now ask him, are you doing well serving as Jarl?
Quite fine, my friend. Quite fine. So sad what happened to young Elisif. Tragic, really. Such a young and pretty girl. Was in over her head, I'm afraid. But we should be done with murders in the Blue Palace. I've stepped up security around here.
And, if you had a bounty on your head, you could ask, I'm having some difficulties with the guards. Can you take care of that?
Yes, I've heard about all that fuss. I myself know it's all a terrible, terrible misunderstanding. I'm quite sure you're innocent in all this. This one time only, I'll grant you special immunity for any past transgressions, real or perceived. But going forward, I'm sure you realize that your fate is in your own hands, and the law cannot be bent for personal friendships.
Now, something interesting about this dialogue is that the script notes state that Erikur is fully aware of the fact that you killed Elisif. How he would be aware of this is never specified, but it's kinda interesting. There's actually some good foreshadowing here, as Erikur is the only person that's normally present at the Blue Palace who you couldn't ask for help under any circumstances during the quest. So he definitely seems involved with some very strange powers or people, but nothing is ever explained, sadly. Now, his court wouldn't actually change. Bolgar stays as housecarl, Sibyl stays as court wizard, and Falk stays as steward. However, it seems that at one point, Gisli, Erikur's sister, was meant to take over as steward. She's a part of the necessary factions, and she has the necessary dialogue, but in development it seems that it was chosen to let Falk stay. Another weird fact about Gisli is that she's also set up to be a possible friend escort during the bidding quest, but she never sets foot in the Blue Palace under normal circumstances. If you had been keeping track, I mentioned 10 friends but only 9 names. Here's your 10th. Now, letting Falk remain as steward wasn't a lazy choice either, as there is actually new dialogue recorded for this fact. It can be heard in this one scene where Falk meets up in secret with his lover Thane Bryling. The scene normally goes like this.
Falk, you shouldn't have come. You know what happened if people would find out about us.
I know, my lady. I just needed to see you outside of court, away from all of the politics.
I'm serious. If Erikur knew about us, he'd force you to resign from your position. And without you, he'd have the Jarl bent around his little finger.
You're right, of course. But when this war is over, I'll gladly resign and we can stop sneaking around like this.
One more reason to pray for the fighting to end, then, my love.
But, if Elisif is dead, the scene plays out like this.
Falk, you shouldn't have come. You know what happened if people would find out about us.
I know, my lady. I just needed to see you outside of court, away from all of the politics.
I'm serious. If Erikur knew about us, he'd force you to resign from your position. And without you helping the Jarl, solitude would be weaker.
You're right, of course. But when this war is over, I'll gladly resign and we can stop sneaking around like this.
One more reason to pray for the fighting to end, then, my love.
Solitude's guards will also receive 2 new comments about the whole ordeal.
First Torrig and now Elisif. Damn those Stormcloaks. Let's hope that Erikur fares better than they did. We'll protect Erikur as best as we're able, but I fear the throne of Solitude is cursed.
First Torrig and now Elisif. Damn those Stormcloaks. Let's hope that Erikur fares better than they did. We'll protect Erikur as best we're able, but I fear the throne of Solitude is cursed.
First Torrig and now Elisif?
Damn those Stormcloaks. Let's hope that Erikur fares better than they did. We'll protect Erikur as best we're able, but I fear the Throne of Solitude is cursed.
Meanwhile, Stormcloak guards also get 2 new comments, albeit in a much more satisfied tone.
Filthy she-hound Elisif got what she deserved. Let her serve as High Queen of Oblivion for all I care. It is whispered that one of the Daedric princes himself is behind the murder of Elisif. It would seem even the nobility of Oblivion favors our cause.
Filthy she-hound Elisif got what she deserved. Let her serve as High Queen of Oblivion for all I care. It is whispered that one of the Daedric princes himself is behind the murder of Elisif. It would seem even the nobility of Oblivion favors our cause.
Filthy she-hound Elisif got what she deserved. Let her serve as High Queen of Oblivion for all I care. It is whispered that one of the Daedric princes himself is behind the murder of Elisif. It would seem even the nobility of Oblivion favors our cause.
Of course, the civil war would also be affected by this. On the Imperial side, the quest, the Jagged Crown, would usually start with this scene between Legate Ricca and General Tullius.
Tell me again why I'm wasting men chasing after a fairy tale.
If Ulfric gets his hand on that crown, it won't be a fairy tale. It'll be a problem.
Don't you Nords put any stock in your own traditions? I thought the Moot chose the king. We're backing Elisif. When the Moot meets, they'll do the sensible thing.
Not everyone's agreed to the Moot. You've been here long enough to know that Nords aren't always sensible. We follow our hearts.
So what? Ulfric gets this crown and then suddenly he's High King?
No, it's not as simple as that. But the Jagged Crown would be a potent symbol for his cause to rally around. But if we found it first...
And we gave it to Elisif.
In the absence of the Moot, it would further legitimize her claim.
Perhaps. I'm entrusting you with what resources I can spare. But I'm warning you, if this turns out to be a waste of time and men...
It won't be a waste.
Make sure you take the auxiliary here. You can send him back when you get there and find nothing but old bones and cobwebs.
The Stonefist's no fool. He's found the crown. But we'll get to it first.
But if Elisif is dead, it will play this altered variation instead.
So what? Ulfric gets this crown and then suddenly he's High King?
No, it's not as simple as that. But the Jagged Crown would be a potent symbol for his cause to rally around. But if we found it first...
And we gave it to Erikur.
In the absence of the Moot, it would further legitimize his claim.
Pretty cool, right? Here is something even cooler. If the Stormcloaks won the Civil War, then Ulfric and Galmar would talk about Elisif before Ulfric gives his speech. It normally goes like this.
Good. It's done.
Well, I suppose some kind of speech is in order.
I'll go gather the men in the courtyard.
And Elisif?
Don't you worry about her. I've sent my best men to round her up.
But, you already guessed it, if Elisif's dead, he will talk about Erikur.
Good. It's done.
Well, I suppose some kind of speech is in order.
I'll go gather the men in the courtyard.
And Erikur?
Don't you worry about him. I've sent my best men to round him up.
The same thing happens during the speech itself, and it's even some nicely written, unique dialogue too.
And now, I present to you, Ulfric Stormcloak, hero of the people, liberator, and High King of Skyrim.
I am indeed Ulfric Stormcloak. And indeed, there are many that call me hero. But it is all of you who are the true heroes. It was you who fought a dying empire, who sunk its claws into our land, trying to drag us down with it. It was you who fought the Thalmor and their puppets who would have us deny our gods and our heritage. It was you who fought your kin who didn't understand our cause, who weren't willing to pay the price for our freedom. But more than that, it was you who fought for Skyrim, for our right to fight our own battles, to return to our glory and traditions, to determine our own future. And it is for these reasons that I cannot accept the mantle of High King. Not until the Moot declares that title should adorn my shoulders will I accept it.
And what about Jarl Elisif?
Yes, what about the Lady Elisif? Will she put aside her personal hatred for me and her misplaced love for the Emperor and his coin, so that the suffering of our people will end? Will she acknowledge that it is we Nords who will determine Skyrim's future? Will she swear fealty to me, so all may know that we are at peace and a new day has dawned?
I do.
Then it is settled. The Jarl will continue to rule Solitude. I will garrison armies here to ward off Imperial attempts to reclaim the city. And in due time, the Moot will meet and settle the claim to High King once and for all. There is much to do, and I need every able-bodied man and woman committed to rebuilding Skyrim. A great darkness is growing, and soon we will be called to fight it, on these shores or abroad. The Aldmeri Dominion may have defeated the Empire, but it has not defeated Skyrim! How'd I do?
Not so bad. Nice touch about the High King.
And it is for these reasons that I cannot accept the mantle of High King, not until the Moot declares that title should adorn my shoulders will I accept it.
And what about Jarl Erikur?
Yes, what about Jarl Erikur? Will he cast aside the Imperial coin falling into his coffers? Will he acknowledge that we Nords deserve to determine our own future? Will he swear fealty to me, that all may know we are at peace and a new day has dawned?
I do!
Then it is settled. The Jarl will continue to rule Solitude. I will garrison armies here to ward off Imperial attempts to reclaim the city. And in due time, the Moot will meet and settle the claim to High King once and for all.
So, as you just heard, Erikur would swear loyalty to Ulfric just like Elisif, so that plot point would remain the same. Now, similar to the quest, this is where my work abruptly stops. That's pretty much all there is for new dialogue, so yeah. All other instances of Elisif don't really get a replacement. Or rather, hadn't gotten a replacement yet by the time all of this content was removed. There isn't really anything I could add or speculate about. Why was this removed? Who knows? I mean, I find this whole concept more believable than a single person climbing aboard a boat and assassinating Titus Medi II, but that made it into the final game. What I'm trying to say is, I really have no clue. Can you blame me? It seems like even the developers didn't know what to do here, as one of the developers left a note in a related script saying, leaving this in case we decide to do this again. They definitely went somewhere with this concept and it would have been nice to see fleshed out, but I guess we'll have to make do with the remains that we have. And yeah, that's where I'll leave you. If I taught even a single person something new today, then I'm happy. Leave your thoughts and requests in the comments below, and until next time, we have enough content to keep us going for a long while.